Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Plotlines. I'm your host, Connor, and today we're continuing the fairy tales series with episode 2 on the story of the Juniper tree. This was a story I first heard when I was studying it in college. I took a class on fairy tales, and this one was very in some ways distressing, in some ways very shocking. It's a horrifying tale, but it's incredibly interesting. So the tale starts with a couple, with a husband and wife, and they have no children, but the woman is pious and she prays day and night that she may receive a child. Now, there's no explicit mention of God in the story, but it seems to me that there's nobody else that could possibly be a reference to other than God. Now, the story continues when, after time passes, she asks for a child as red as blood and as white as snow, which I think is just very poetic. Um, coming in with what comes next. Then after 9 months, uh, a child is born to her who's white as snow and as red as blood, and she's so happy she dies. The husband is deeply grieved at what has happened. Her she gives birth to a son, but and then the husband buries his wife under a juniper tree. He eventually overcomes his grief and is able to bear it and eventually marries again. And he has a daughter with this other wife. This other wife, the son's stepmother, is incredibly vindictive. She's overcome with fury and with anger. She beats the child. She she's an abusive mother, and she basically makes it clear that this child is her not of her not her child, and that she doesn't love him, and that he is second rate to her daughter. And she is eventually fearful over this son inheriting everything that her husband has when he dies, and this fear eventually drives her to do something quite horrific. So the daughter's name is Marlene. She's the only named character, which is quite interesting. She does have an important part to play in the story. She is a good daughter. She's a very it seems like she is very good. More like the son's mother than her own mother. Now, the mother wants, or sorry, the daughter Marlene wants an apple, and the mother is overcome, quote unquote, by the evil one, which to me seems very clear that it's referencing the devil. The devil uh, basically helps her focus on all the bad stuff, and how this kid's not hers, um and that she will not her child won't inherit, and that sort of thing. And when the child wasn't didn't come home from school yet, she decided to give her daughter an apple, but she told her not until your brother gets one. And when the brother gets home, she takes his hand, brings him over to the uh, chest full of apples, has him get it himself, sorry, and he leans over to get the apple, and she swings the chest down upon him, and off comes his head. So she murders her stepson, and then she realizes she's in big trouble. So she has to figure out a way to get out of this situation. So she has her daughter go over to she puts the head back on him, and she says that you have to give your brother the apple, and she tries to give it to him, but and then she sort of she tries to give it to him, and she knocks off the head that was already taken off. He's a corpse at this point, which is uh very insane, very terrifying to me, and very traumatizing, I imagine, for this little girl. And she thinks she's killed her because the head falls off. She doesn't know that it's a corpse, that he's a corpse. Anyways, and then she's like, the mother comes over and is basically like, "Oh, we have to hide this. Don't tell anyone about this." And she decides to turn the child's corpse into a stew, which is absolutely disgusting. And the father comes back, and basically she says that the son is going to be staying with his uncle, I think it is, and the father's very upset because the son didn't tell him that he was going to do this, and he eventually uh, he's is hungry and wants food, and basically she feeds him his son, which is and he really likes it for some reason. I've always thought that to be one of the odder parts of the story, is that it's like he eats all of the stew, and it's as if he knows that it's his, which is kind of weird. I mean, yes, in some sense, like the boy was only his because his mother was dead, and the stepmother uh, doesn't have any claim over him except for probably in law. So eventually, this bird amongst the juniper tree, well, the daughter goes out crying. She's overcome. She just can't stop. She's crying. Um, and she goes off. She takes the bones and buries the child. Buries the bones of her sibling. Next, this bird flies away, and he begins to sing this song. And she feels better and stopped crying after she brought the bones uh to juniper tree. So buried with his mother, and the bird flies away first to the goldsmith and sings, "My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. My sister Marlene gathered all my bones, tied them in a silken scarf, laid them beneath the juniper tree. Tweet, tweet, what a beautiful bird I am." And this goldsmith makes a golden chain and gives it to the bird. Then he goes to the shoemaker and sings the same song. "My mother, she killed me. My father, He ate me. My sister Marlene gathered all my bones, tied them in a silken scarf, laid them beneath the juniper tree. Tweet, tweet. What a beautiful bird am I. It's funny because it makes me think of Twitter a bit, like like tweeting this out. And it also reminds me very much of Cinderella. We went through Cinderella last week. Cinderella, the birds are important. They're telling uh, the prince what's going on. Sort of these birds seemingly act maybe in an angelic manner, just as the evil one has overcome the the wife that kills the child, and sort of compels her, or not compels, brings about it with evil thoughts, and then she carries those evil thoughts and acts on those evil thoughts, because it's one thing to have evil thoughts, and then it's another thing to act on those evil thoughts. Really, this is also where this evil stepmother thing that comes from. There's a lot of stories where there's an evil stepmother, and this is one of those stories where it's clear this motif is being created. It's also interesting, every time this bird goes to different places, he sings this song, and if the person doesn't give him anything, he says, they ask the bird to sing again, and he says, I do not sing twice for nothing, you must give me something. He goes to a shoemaker. The shoemaker gives him shoes, boots, red boots, I think, or red shoes. um, then he goes to the miller, and he has the miller cut him a stone, or the miller, sorry, a bunch of tree builders, I think, apprentices, a bunch of miller apprentices cut him a stone, give him a millstone. uh and then the bird returns to the father, or to the father's house. The mother, father, and Marlene are sitting at the table, and the father is contented, and the mother begins to sort of everything begins to overcome her, and she is feeling terrible. And then the father hears the bird, uh, and he feels as if he's going to meet someone that he has known for a long time, and he goes out of the house, and the bird drops a golden chain around his neck after singing. And then the woman gets even worse. She gets more insane. She starts tearing up her clothes. She eventually leaves the house, because she's, quote, I feel as if the whole house was shaking and on fire. And then the she goes out, and the bird drops a millstone on her head, and she dies. The bird gives Marlene the shoes, and then the father comes out of the house again and finds the son standing and alive, and they live happily ever after, basically. And they sit and eat, what I don't know what they eat, but they eat something. It's very it reminds us very much of Christ, insofar as Christ's resurrection, and because of sort of, you could say, because of the mother, all this comes to pass. It's an interesting story. It very much it it brings the imagination out. It really uh, it recognizes that people have when they have a closer bond, they have allegiance to that bond. The mother-in-law, the stepmother doesn't have the same love for uh her own, or doesn't have the same love that she has for her own child for the stepson. And like I said, this is a common thread. It happens in Cinderella. It happens in the Silmarillion with Tolkien. It's such a common thing because, and Plato makes this bad puts forward this terrible opinion at one point that the state, that the city has or should raise the children. And then he comes to realize later and contradicts himself and corrects himself that no, parents should raise their children. They have a greater interest, they have a greater love for their own children. It's a cruel thing for any parent not to love their child. I don't know how that could happen, to be honest. It's so terrible to have that exist, but it's way less likely, but it's more than someone not loving someone else's child, because the child that you have that is your own, you are linked with biologically and spiritually, and you have authority over. And I think this is kind of what it's trying to say. But this child, just because the mother is the one who gets the comeuppance, the stepmother gets the comeuppance, uh, and everyone lives happily ever after. This is one of those stories that hasn't been turned into a Disney version or anything like that. I think there's a Danish version of this tale or something like that in movie, but I haven't seen it. And I don't know. I wonder what like a Disneyified version would have looked like if if this was turned into a Disney. Of course, not today. I'm not talking about Disney of today. I'm thinking like Disney of the 80s, 90s, or 70s, or something like, or even 50s, 40s, 60s. That kind of Disney. I wonder what they would have done with the story. Obviously, this story wasn't sort of part of their cup of tea. So yeah, so that's kind of that's the story. I if you have if anybody has any comments, questions, I will leave them, ask them, and I'll respond to them, and maybe we can have a discussion. Maybe we'll turn this into a discussion section, discussion live stream or something like that, where I bring on someone to talk about these different fairy tales as well. And this is my sort of lecture about them. And then maybe we'll have discussions. Let me know in the chat if you want to see sort of a discussion between me and some other people about these fairy tales. I'd love to talk with somebody else about it, but I would love to know if you guys want to see that too. Thank you everyone for watching. Um, Tomorrow we're going to be doing a live stream at 8 p.m. Central Time with Darren, and Thursday about what conservatism is. And we're going to go through a bunch of the different ones, and we're going to talk about what it really means and where it came from and that sort of thing. And then on Friday, I'm going to be talking to Catherine Bennett of Agape. I can't remember what the podcast is. It's something Agape. Anyways, that will be Friday. That'll be Friday. Okay. Thank you everyone for watching. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And God bless. Bye.